this guy named Travis Walton was working as a forester, cutting down trees in the forests in northern Arizona, and it was like him and his crew of like 7 foresters in a truck, and they come up to a clearing as they're going home for the day, and they see this flying saucer, and his first instinct is to run out of the truck and run towards the flying saucer. And apparently he said during this interview that apparently he was just full of testosterone and like really just had that energy to go, and like if you are fight or flight, he'll just run at you and fight. And apparently he had run at a bear like 2 weeks before that. So Jesus. Yeah. So anyways, yeah, he runs at the flying saucer, and basically it beams him and fucking just electrocutes him like a lightning bolt, and he just gets flung off like 10, 20 feet away. His friends freak out, drive off, and they're like, oh shit, we should probably go back for him. And then apparently as they're going back, they see the flying saucer zip off like that. And they go back and look for Travis, and he's gone. And they go back into town, they tell the police and whatnot, and the whole town, everybody thinks that they murdered him. And so they're all taking lie detector tests because they thought that, hey, these guys fucking made up a story after they killed this motherfucker and dropped his body in the forest. And so then 5 days later, Travis Walton comes stumbling out of the fucking woods. And anyways, this is the recollection of his story. And I'll be honest, the interviewer of this, and if any of those people are watching, what's up? Because it's a little club. They meet like once a month. And anyways, you just pay $20 to show up to this MUFON meeting. And so the interviewer, I think, is one of the main people at the MUFON. He was so bad at interviewing. I was like, bro, put the microphone down. Let me come up and I'll ask them motherfucker questions. Because I really wanted to get this guy on the podcast. This is kind of why I went. Because I was like, I might get the chance to meet him. Like, how many people are going to show up to an alien convention, MUFON club, monthly club meeting, and like make it to where it's so like non-intimate that I can't talk to the guy. And so I knew I was going to get my chance to talk to this guy. So anyways, he's on top of the stage, and the interviewer just had lists of prepared questions, and half the questions had nothing to do with the fucking story itself. The interview sucked, but I knew enough of his story, and yeah, basically is pretty much what I knew. So anyways, comes stumbling out of the fucking forest, and he's like, calls his fucking brother, and is like, hey, I'm Travis, come pick me up. And he was super traumatized from the whole experience. I think that's what I got out of that interview. It was a lot of trauma. And he basically told them, yeah, I was on the fucking this flying saucer, and there was these short 3-4 foot tall beings that looked like just aliens with big gray heads and big fucking beady eyes. And he said he was like laying on a table, and in retrospect, because this is 45 years ago, it was in the 70s, and he basically said in retrospect, he just wishes this whole thing never happened to him. He just like apparently just isn't happy with the way it affected his life as far as the whole media and everything, because this was such big news at the time, because these guys were in the news for murder. Now he stumbles out of the woods. He really was abducted by an alien. What the fuck, and apparently what happened was when he was on the ship, when he realized that he was on a table, it was just like, at first he thought he was in the hospital, but he basically just got up off the table, and he was hurt because he got fucking electrocuted and shit. But he thought, after he thought about it, that they were trying to heal him, because he came out of that with no injuries other than just dehydration and hasn't eaten for 5 days. But he got up and he got off the table, and apparently he went and grabbed like an instrument, maybe one of their instruments that they were using, and he was like using it to fend them off, like, don't come near me. And he said when they looked at him, they were just standing there just watching him as he just fucking did that. And he said their eyes, it just felt like they were looking into his like soul, just like looking through him. And then all of a sudden they scurry out of the room, like just the little door opens, they scurry out, and shuts, and he's like sitting there like, what am I gonna do? And he said it was like hard to breathe, like the atmosphere, right? Probably because they zipped off into space, bro. And he said a few minutes later, these human fucking looking beings that weren't human, but they looked close enough to being human to where he was like willing to settle down and comply with them for a little bit. And he said they just came in and they were wearing helmets, these humanoid beings that looked like just fucking blonde humans. And he said they just got him to lay down, and then they just fucking put a mask on him and knocked him out. And then he woke up on the street by a payphone.
Like when he says blonde humans, does he mean like kind of like
think
Nazis?
Norwegian, like yeah, Aryan race type shit. Yeah, so like blonde hair, blue eyes. But they weren't quite human, but they looked human. And so he was just like, and he thought maybe they were like the military coming to save him, but nah, they were just like coming to settle him down. And but here's the thing. The interviewer is so frustrating because I'm like, bro, ask him about the instrument. Ask him about how the fucking aliens look. Ask him if he, like anything. What were you thinking when they fucking walked out of the room and you were trying to fucking just process what's happened to you? No, he didn't ask any of that shit. He was just like, yeah, okay, let me go back to my list of questions that I wrote out last night. Like what? Ask him shit that people are curious about.
Did you get to talk to him after?
Yeah, so me and Clark stuck around because Clark went with me, and me and Clark stuck around just to talk to everybody, and we kind of talked to the lady who's in charge of this MUFON group, and I was like asking her, you know, like, so how did you even become this position, like the leader of the Phoenix MUFON or whatever? And she was telling me like basically 13 years ago, she just somehow got interested in aliens and UFOs, showed up to a meeting, and they're like, yeah, we need a new person to be in charge, and she's like, I'll do it, and then that's how it happened, right? And it's like you pay $25 or something to go to the thing, and they have like different speakers each time apparently. So anyways, afterwards they said, hey, we're all going to Portillo's down the street in Tempe. So come and eat with us. We'll all get to network and whatnot. And I was like, dope. That's my chance. And so I go, and obviously, you know, Travis Walton is there. We're like just in line getting our food. And here's the thing. He's not like a fucking celebrity, like mainstream. So it's not like we have a huge crowd of people around us. It's just you guys. It's just a few of the people who went to the fucking thing that went to Portillo's afterwards. And so while we're waiting for the food, I just kind of like approached them. It was like me and Clark were like wondering how we do it. And I was like, dude, I feel like I'm about to approach a girl at the club, you know, like, so I just went up and just kind of started making conversation with him, which was kind of awkward because apparently his like long lost nephew showed up to this thing and he was catching up with his nephew. So I was like, that's what made it hard to like kind of get your in, because he was talking to a guy he hasn't seen for forever. And so anyways, he's like an old man, kind of talks slow. He's in his late 70s. And so anyways, I went up to him and I was about to be like I was thinking, should I just kind of make light conversation and then kind of slide in the podcast mention? And I knew he lived in Arizona, but he had to fly down because he lives in North Arizona. And so he said he was flying back the next day. I basically just talked to him. I asked him, so what has it been like to genuinely be in your shoes and have to tell the same story to every person you meet for 45 years in a row? And I asked him that question. That's a good fucking question. Man, I should have been the motherfucker interviewing him. But that was my in, right? And I asked him that, and he just said, honestly, man, I just wish it never happened to me.
Oh, that's where he kind of opened up and told you about that?
No, but he said it again because he said it on stage, and I was like, did he really say that? And then he literally said that. And I could see in his eyes were all red. It's like 5 p.m. He's been traveling, and he's an old fucking man, so he's just tired as shit. And I was just like, I can't ask this guy to be on my podcast. He just told me he wishes it never happened to him. And he looks tired as shit and old, and his eyes are completely bloodshot. And I was like, damn. Like, all right, well, dude, best of luck. I'm grateful you're here. You know, things like that. And then that was the last I spoke to him. But right after that, me and Clark were going to go eat. And I was like, fuck it, man. Didn't get him on the podcast or whatever. And, when me and Clark are about to find a table to ourselves, the leader of the MUFON, the lady, she was like, hey, you guys, I want to introduce you to Mike. You should sit down and eat. He came by himself. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe she's just trying to get more people networking in the thing. So me and Clark just went over and talked to him, and I'm like kind of excited because I don't ever talk to random people about UFOs and have them actually be interested in it like me, you know? And so I was like, oh, wow, this is crazy. Okay, me and Clark are about to buckle up, and we're getting ready for some fucking conversation. And we started talking to this guy, and he's like an expert on crop circles and the UFO Antarctica connection. He's like an expert on that shit.
Oh, with the secret like base in Antarctica?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And I was like, oh, she just could tell that we were into it, and she knew we would want to meet him because she literally said, I think you guys would like Mike, so you guys should talk to him. So we talked to him, and basically he's coming on the podcast soon.
Nice.
Yeah, because he just moved back to Arizona.
Bro, that's going to be badass, like getting an actual expert.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's legit. I mean, he knew anything that me and Clark brought up, and all those like mainstream UFO people that you see on the documentaries and shit. Apparently, he's like friends with all of them, and he's been to dinner with all of them and stuff.
Oh,
and he's like telling.
So he's well connected.
Well connected. He's been he's been involved with this stuff for decades. You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, cool guy. He's coming on the podcast, and yeah, he. You remember I was telling you about the Integratron? You remember that shit?
Integratron.
That like fucking machine that like heals people.
The time machine?
No, it's not a time machine. It's like I showed you that
video.
The video. I think it was an Ancient Aliens episode where they were talking about this like thing in the Mojave Desert that some crazy dude built by this fucking rock that has like weird energy around it, and
before he
makes
finished,
people go crazy.
He died, right?
Yeah, and apparently he was getting beamed down the blueprints for this, and people are calling him the fucking like Nikola Tesla of harmonics and acoustics, but it was just getting channeled to him, and he fucking built this machine that was supposed to heal any condition and basically make people immortal. It was called the Immortality Machine, and he called it the Integratron. The dude died like 2 weeks before it was about to be finished, and he only had the blueprints in his head. And so they never were able to finish it. Anyways, this guy, the expert, he had a business that recently went out of business because he got divorced, and his wife got the whole business and basically ran it to shit. So that's why he moved back here. But the business was they had a little mini version of this machine that they had apparently gotten to work, and so it was just like kind of like a spa thing where you come and sit in this thing. He was showing us pictures of it, and yeah. So anyways, this guy, he's that was their business, but he said he would sit there, and I forget where it was located. I think it was somewhere in California. But it was kind of like in a remote area where they'd have something like that. And apparently he would just meditate a lot, very spiritual type of guy. And I don't know why, but me and Clark kind of just asked him, hey, have you ever seen a UFO? Because this is one question that they did ask Travis Walton on the stage was, have you ever seen any more UFOs, things like that? And he has actually, but his response surprised me because he was just like, I mean, who hasn't seen a UFO? You mean like you just walk outside, you look up, and you're probably likely to see one. And I was like, I've never seen a UFO, and I look up all the time because I'm looking for them. And so I don't know what that means, but maybe it's like if you see one, they want you to see them, you know? So anyways, I asked this guy, have you ever seen one? And he said, yeah. I was like, no way. Tell me about it. And he goes, I actually have pictures. He started he was like about to pull them up on his phone, like in his fucking photos that he took with his phone. And he started showing me and Clark, just like these pictures that are like balls of light. Most of them look like just random balls of light. And one of them was like a saucer shaped light, in daytime. So it wasn't night. It was in like a blue sky background, right? But the pictures were kind of out of focus because Clark was like giving him shit. He's like, bro, did you take this on an iPhone 1? What the fuck? And apparently he just took him on his phone through the window of his like fucking business. So anyways, he showed us enough of them where we started to believe that
it was something.
Yeah. And like some of them were like, they looked like the fucking Tic Tac, from the Tic Tac story that the Navy pilot saw.
Did he have just pictures or did he have videos as well?
No videos, just pictures that he took on his fucking Android phone. And Androids are shitty as fuck. So you already know they were low quality photos. But anyways, yeah, but isn't it crazy that always the pictures of the UFOs are never like high resolution shit?
I wonder if that's part of their technology. How crazy would that be? Just like on the UFO, they just have like some technology when you try to take a picture, it just fucking makes it all blurry or fuzzy.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised. Like I would not be surprised if as soon as you whip out your phone, they just zip off because they're just like toying with you. They don't want you to fucking take a picture. Like what if they can sense that?
Or what if it's like the magnetic waves from the phone just doof, and it just kind of like bounces them back?
Yeah. When me and Clark started hanging out consistently and were like becoming friends, we both knew we were super into UFOs, but then we would ask like, do you really believe in them like 100%? And obviously we kind of not sound crazy, so we go, yeah, like maybe like 90%, you know. But I'm like legitimately, I was thinking about this, and I want to ask you first, what do you think, if you had to bet, what percent would you put on they're real? 100%? Are they real? UFOs and aliens, and are they here? I mean,
I would say 90%.
90%? So there's a 10% and it might not be real?
Yeah.
Okay. Why do you say that?
I don't know, man. That's a good question. I just feel like there's like so much evidence, but I just haven't experienced anything crazy or seen anything crazy like as of late, you know, that I can say 100% without a doubt that's a UFO.
But didn't you say you saw something that was saucer shaped that had fucking spinning colors on it?
But again, like I say, it's like I was so young, so like I don't know if that was my imagination or what, you know. I don't have no clue what it was, but at the same time, I was a kid, so I wouldn't put it past me that it was just like an overactive imagination or some shit like that. Who knows? Maybe I'm just in denial.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I thought about it myself the other day, and I was like, man, it's got to be like 98%. Like, I'm not 100% sure, but then I thought about it in reverse, because Charlie Munger, the wise soul he is, the mentor to Warren Buffett, one of the top investors in the world, also multi-billionaire. He has a book called Poor Charlie's Almanac, and it's like his entire thought process on investing. Anyways, wise man, but he always said, you should never debate something until you can debate the other side just as well. So he also talked about like inverse thinking. So if you can't solve a problem, look at it, flip it in reverse. It's kind of like if I ask you, hey, do you know how to attract a girl? Like, could you tell me how to attract a girl? And then you think about it, and a lot of guys probably go, maybe. And then you go, all right, how about this? Could you tell me what not to do if I want to attract a girl, right? You just flip it on its head. So I was like, okay, I'm probably thinking like 98%. Like, it's not 100%. But then I was like, okay, well, let's think about the reality of they're not real. And then that one really fucked with me, because I was just like, of all the shit that I've studied from just my own research, not studied like I'm fucking trying to memorize it, but you literally, like, a lot of this shit is so interesting to you. If you're interested in it, you read it once or hear about it once, you don't forget it, you know, because you're trying to fill in the blanks in your own head. Like, what about this? Well, what about that? Of all the shit I've seen, all the government shit that is coming out, I'm like, when I flipped it on its head, I was like, there's no way it's not real. And that's kind of what I realized when I did the inverse of the problem, you know? And so now I'm pretty much fucking convinced. But here's the thing. I don't think I'm as convinced as Clark. Because, again, even when I think about it, I'm like, okay, there's got to be like a 0.0000001% of just uncertainty where I'm just not quite sure. Because it could be military. You don't fucking know, right? But I mentioned that to Clark the other day after we're now kind of friends and we don't give a shit if we believe in it or not. And he goes, dude, of course it's real. 100% it's real. I was like, oh, okay. I'm not quite there yet.
You're just like that 0.1.
Yeah. Yeah, but I was telling you the other day when I was on shrooms, when I told about these guys that story where I was seeing geometric shapes and shit, I had a moment where I felt so connected to everything, you know, as far as just realizing how the universe around me really works, because shrooms are weird like that. And I had the instinct that if I went outside right now and meditated under these stars where they're so fucking bright, I felt certain, something within me, that something would come to me, like I would channel some fucking UFO being,
something,
and I would at least see something. I just had that deep-seated feeling. And I was too afraid that it was going to happen, so I didn't do it. And, yeah. I don't know why I brought that up.
Imagine being the alien while Travis is his name, right?
Yeah.
While Travis is in there, you're one of the aliens that's working there. and like he just fucking comes up, does that little thing. That'd be a hell of a story to come back to the alien family and be like, tell your wife, just there was a crazy, crazy human on ship today.
Yeah.
Imagine what they would have thought. Like, I'm curious as to like what their thought process is when working on humans or just, you know?
Yeah. Dude, I was so pissed with how little detail they got into with the questions they were asking.
Do you think
everything about that story confuses me? Because there's a lot of people trying to debunk it and say it's not real. But I mean, I'll tell you what, he's 100%. This man is not lying, you know. And the cop out to that is, I believe that he believes he got abducted, right? Because the man is not lying. Period. I looked this man in the face right here, and he genuinely said, "I just kind of wish this whole thing never happened to me." You know, like. Was
he like into aliens and like believed that before he got abducted?
I don't think so.
So he was just like a regular,
he's just a dude.
He's just a regular dude, and then this happened.
He's like, there's no way this is real. And he said, surely if I run at it, it'll just zip off, right? And I think they were talking about it because maybe apparently in that forest there was a sighting like the week before. So it was fresh on the mind a little bit. But other than that, I don't think he was. But anyways, he, like, I wonder, the one thing that doesn't add up to me is these aliens clearly, from his story that he was telling at this thing, it seemed like they only abducted him to heal him because maybe he had gotten too close and there was like a ball of energy around it. It looked like it had just a bunch of energy around it. And so when he got close, it's like a bolt of just zapped him, you know, because that's what happens with electricity, right? Mm-hmm. And so he says that they were healing him because when he came back, he didn't have the injuries like that, right? But he did get like brain scans and stuff, and there was some anomalies in his brain waves, maybe as a result of just getting zapped, you know? And so he said he really wants to talk to someone who maybe has experience and knowledge about brain scans to explain the anomalies and see if they really are anomalies from that. But he just said that the doctor who did it did see anomalies in his brain waves, right? So anyways, there's other evidence like in the clearing where this UFO was, they went and surveyed like the trees around it because it's a forest, right? And when they cut down the trees around it and studied it, the rings were actually thicker on the side of the tree that was facing where the UFO apparently was. So the radiation caused those trees to grow in a way that was very similar to the radioactive nuclear meltdown in Russia. That whole, what's the name of that fucking nuclear meltdown? The town.
Chernobyl.
Yeah, exactly. Apparently it mimicked what trees did there in the growth patterns from the radioactivity, right? And so it makes sense if this thing was radioactive, which is common among a lot of these UFO stories, is that people get radiation poisoning afterwards. So yeah, the trees that were the side of the tree that was facing, the rings were thicker, things like that. So there's a lot of evidence that points to this could have been real, but obviously what evidence could actually prove it other than manifesting this fucking thing and confirming it, right? But what doesn't add up to me, and what I would have asked him if I was fucking on that stage right there, and me and Clark sat front row, you know, so we were just like teachers' pets. It was like a little college lecture hall. It was like, what was the purpose of the aliens coming there to that clearing? Because if you think about it, if they had a mission of some sort and they were there for a reason, well, all they fucking did was abduct this fucking human that got in their way, zipped off, healed him, brought him back. So was that their mission? Clearly that couldn't have been their mission, you know, unless they're time travelers and they're like, we need to go back and abduct him to fix the timeline, right? I don't fucking know, but I don't know.
What if it was like the government? Like if it was like the government, you know, kind
of. Well, from his account, these were clearly not humans. You know, the little gray alien things with the big beady eyes and the huge heads.
Yeah.
I mean, those weren't humans. So if it was government, it's still an alien presence, you know?
I guess, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. What do you have anything that you're curious about it?
I mean, it's just like a whole interesting story as far as like, I know you were saying the radioactiveness from the trees. Was that, you said only on part of the tree or like all those trees were radioactive?
all
As
the
far as-
trees around it. So you imagine a little clearing in the forest. If the flying saucer is just hovering there, all the trees around it, the side of the trees that were facing towards the middle, those rings, when they cut them down, the rings had normal growth patterns around the tree, except on the side that was facing it, the rings were extra large, you know, and that mimics what some of the things did as a result of the radioactivity.
Did they let you guys do like a Q&A where you could ask a question?
Yeah,
to
but
the panel or no?
There was enough people in there to where
Not everyone got to ask.
yeah, they only did like 6 questions and they walked a microphone around.
Yeah.
And I was very surprised that the attendance at this thing, one, I honestly didn't expect anybody to actually show up to this thing.
How many were there? They're like 20.
There was 40 people, I think.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah, I think because of COVID, they had a limit of 44, and I think about 40 people showed up. And it's $20 to get in, so yeah, I guess someone made a couple $1,000 that day. Anyways, but yeah, like I would say 30 of the 40 were above the age of 65, which is really crazy. Like, why are this many old people here?